You don't care? You don't think that you have any responsibility to the truth or moderating the platform?
So you're conflating the truth with the media, and I think the media is not truthful.
You obviously give a long leash to your fighters about, what they can say when they are up there with a UFC microphone.
I don't give anybody a leash. A leash? Free speech, brother. People can say whatever they want and they can believe whatever they want.
Right now, we're going to discuss racism and we're all in a circle. And as soon as someone starts talking, and let's pretend I'm the chair and I control the whole thing, I don't like what you're saying. And then I have the power to just mute them. Anyone else have anything to say? And that's what's happening on a larger scale here. And I just don't think people realize that. They're going, no.
Freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. And there is an assault, there's an attack that is trying to stifle that. In Canada, should people be able to say whatever they want to say? There has been a ratcheting up of threats against freedom of speech, especially over the last month or so across our world. We're seeing things from the UK this past week, what's happening with Brazil and the battle between Brazil and X and the access it has. You're looking at things that's going on I mentioned the UK. We talk about in Canada, we got certain things going on like Bill C-63 in its second reading or Bill C-18. And depending who you talk to, you could look at that one way or the other. But I think the real crux of this is that there is definitely I'll be blunt in saying an all-out assault on at least access to information about what you can say, how you can say it, and it's interesting to see how this has been playing out. So we're going to dive into all those things today.
Yeah, and it's extremely relevant to Canada and what we're dealing with in the near future. That we, as you mentioned with C-63, we have to be very, very, very aware what happens in these countries around us, because it sets a standard, it sets an expectation of what's being allowed and what's not. Yeah. And so what I find that's very interesting about all of this is they're actually not calling it a war on free speech. They're trying not to say that, because I think they're trying to get people to understand, trying to get them to look another way and go, no, it's not about free speech. It's about this, and that whole battle with X. They're saying it's a battle of a corporation ignoring the Supreme Court of Brazil laws. Yeah. And Elon keeps saying, nope, this is a battle of free speech over and over and over and over again. And they're going, no, it's not about that. They have a point, and yes, they did ignore a judicial date or something like that, but the reason they ignored it was for the battle of free speech. So,
and then that touches on a really important point, which I think all of us have to understand from a top-down level, is that it's where do you view the freedom of speech in terms of human rights? Because if you look at it's undeniable at the United States and the Constitution in the First Amendment is that individuals have the freedom to speak, the freedom of speech, and it is unalienable, meaning it is not given to them by government. It is given to them by God. But then you do a little bit of a deep dive into the European Union, European nations, which, by the way, Canada gets its start, its foundation from that, from the Commonwealth, is that it, for the most part, is viewed as an important thing, but not necessarily superseding that of law, meaning government can control or taper or be the arbiters of what it should be and what it shouldn't be.
In our prep for this talk, I almost wish we could do what I was imagining. Imagine if we were in a room and we had 10, 12 people in here, and we dropped a topic on the table and said, pick something controversial, racism. Right now, we're going to discuss racism, and we're all in a circle. And as soon as someone starts talking, and let's pretend I'm the chair and I control the whole thing, I don't like what you're saying. And then I have the power to just mute them. Anyone else have anything to say? And we just move around in the circle. Everyone would be like, why'd you just mute that guy? What did he have to say? It's okay. Don't worry about it. What do you have to say, David? And we just keep going around the circle. If that was just like...
because you deem something offside.
Exactly. So imagine if we did that in a social circle, you'd all be like, the guy who's chairing this is a madhouse. He's an idiot. He's like, what is he afraid of? And that's what's happening on a larger scale here. And I just don't think people realize that. Wow. They're going, no.
That's solid.
No.
And we'll add to what you're saying. Think of the psychological effect. Yeah. If you have 12 people and you all of a sudden you just shut somebody up and the consequences because they went offside, they're muted, they can't talk anymore. Well, the next person, and all of a sudden you mute them.
Yeah, you're like...
And then that person, what the psychological effect is, the next people are going to start tapering what they're saying. Or... depending on personalities and all that, they might be afraid of the result that's going to happen to them, so they won't speak their true mind. and you start building that up on a mass scale. Like Ronald Reagan has said this in multiple of addresses, but one of his addresses, that freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. And that's why this conversation is so vital, and that's why there is such a war, call it a war of ideas that is going on right now, because there are different ideas that are trying to take the top, and some of them are going to be great for our country, and some of them are going to be horrific for our country if they win.
So let's give a recap, because a lot of people, I hadn't even seen what happened in Brazil until 2 days ago. So let's give a recap of what's happening in Brazil, why it has to do with Elon and X.
Yeah, well, it's a huge statement is that Brazil, in the attempt to, what a lot of people would say, in the attempt to, I'm trying to think of what perspective I want to come at it from. There's a Brazilian government perspective, which I disagree with, and then there's, I think,
the Brazilian
right perspective.
Government perspective is to stop disinformation or misinformation from a virtuous stance.
Especially in the sense that there is an election coming up, and they don't want, this is what they said. I'll paraphrase it slightly, but they don't want wrong information to influence the public in Brazil. And X is a purveyor of that.
And you know what's really interesting about timing? I know we're not fully done unpacking it yet. Is Mark Zuckerberg's letter last week. You see that?
Remind me.
So Mark Zuckerberg wrote a letter almost admitting.
When you said Mark Zuckerberg, I thought of Elon Musk. But yes, yes.
Admitting
this is good,
that he regrets listening to the censorship instructions that he was instructed to do, and he did do it.
So this is back in 2016 in the election, and also during COVID, is that they were getting pressure from governments to stifle information, especially during COVID, and to suppress it, and also I believe other information that could have been damning towards one of the parties running in the U.S. election. And they were a part of that, because I guess but you should reiterate the regret part, because that's huge.
He regrets doing it. He's come out and admitted doing it. He was accused of doing it the whole time. Always refused that he was, no, we have no part to play with this. And now he's admitting to doing that.
Yeah.
Now, just as I gave the example about muting an individual in the room, now make up the ante a bit and make it an election. We're voting on someone. Anyone have an opinion on the person on the left? You do? Mute. Okay? Anyone have an opinion on the person on the right? Oh, and then they turn up, imagine, they're amplifying one and muting another. So like, depending whatever side you believe or whatever side they did go after, I don't care if it's anyone you disagree with or not, it's wrong.
Yeah.
You are meddling in an election, and they're doing the very thing, just wow, they're doing the very thing that they accused others of doing, and they meddled with the election.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
Well, maybe we'll get this later in the show, but the power and the amount of influence that social media has within countries, because that is the medium. That is the medium by which we communicate, by which we receive. Social media blows out of the water TV numbers, all that stuff. People get their information through Meta, through Instagram, through Facebook, through X, all this stuff. And they've got tremendous power. And that's why you got governments that are trying to control that, or trying to, even here in Canada with Bill C-18. With Bill C-18 is that you've got this act that has come into play, which you and I actually were personally affected by. And they do it under the guise of there might be some good products to it, but when you read the details of the how in-depth these acts go, it's like, okay, this is crazy. So how Jeremy and I are personally affected, if you didn't know a bill, in Bill C-18. What's the name of Bill C-18 again?
Online Harms Act?
Online News Act. 63 is the Harms. Online News Act. So the idea is that basically social media giants in Canada should pay for certain things, and pay a tax, in other words, for being able to not just operate, but there's a lot of nuances in there. And if you don't, then there's going to be a blockade in here. So for example, Jeremy and I went to Ottawa. We built an Instagram account from zero to about 34,000 people in about 2 weeks, because you and I were at Ottawa on the convoy every day. A lot of you listening to us now, listen to follow us then. That account, if you go and look on that account, you cannot access it. Jeremy and I were blocked. We were stopped. And that was when we were planning launching Citizen. We were planning that account to be a part of it
I'll go to it
because
right now.
you go to and show on camera. We're planning that to be a part of it because that is a direct access to 34,000 of you who are a hardcore audience that wanted to know what we thought and where we're going. And we cannot use that to build what we're trying to build with Citizens. So that's why we have started over with all of our social media accounts to build from the ground up again until Bill C-18 gets changed, or and the reason why it's blocked is Meta is refusing to cooperate with the Canadian government on the grounds of they do not believe that it is just that they should be doing that. So Meta just said, okay, then block it. Block what you need to do.
Yeah, exactly. So here, this is what it shows. We can show a full screen slide.
That's
of it,
our account.
and I'll read it. So this is our account.
How many people are left on
There's
it?
30,000, 30.7
So
thousand.
4 of
on
you
it.
have left. 4,000 of you have left because it's inactive.
And it would have been much larger had it not. It was on the right in the trajectory going up. And it says people in Canada can't see this content. In response to Canadian government legislation, news content can't be viewed in Canada.
Yep.
And so so on the surface, the finances to get the government, those companies to pay, sounds okay, great, sure. But if they go, no, we don't have to pay. Why should we have to pay? Now the government is forcing the corporation to make a decision, which also then blocks us from getting information. So these are the largest corporations in the world in the news and social media realms, and we can't access any of their information. And this is like, we're trying to talk about current things happening in Canada, and you can't get it. You absolutely can't get it.
According to the Canadian government, this is what Bill C-18 aims to do, so you get this perspective. Bill C-18 aims to enhance fairness in the economic relationship between news businesses and online platforms by enhancing the bargaining position of news businesses relative to that of large and dominant digital news intermediaries. So essentially what it's trying to say, take money from the large social media accounts that have a great influence and put them into the hands of small guys, smaller news outlets and all that, which on the surface sounds fine. Like, I do believe that we should help and have some funding towards local news outlets. We're not going to get into the whole issue of Canadian government paying news outlets, because that's a
totally
giant issue that is also aside. But that's the aim. But the reality of what's actually happening here is that if you go try to check out any news on social media, specifically Instagram, Facebook, you're not going to be able to access it. So you're actually stifling the access to information. You're restricting what people can say and choosing the content that they can see.
And so this is where it starts to get real. In Brazil, in the similar type situation, the government is deeming something to be offside. So the people have responded and said, we're going to get VPNs. And for those who don't know what a VPN is, it's a service you can get that essentially reroutes your internet connection outside of your service provider. So it uses your service provider as this is brutal explanation, but it uses your internet service and it bridges it around to get you with another connection outside of your governance, your location, and so on and so on and so on.
Yep.
So you can get, so it's a virtual private network. So you're creating a separate layer of protection where they can't read your data, your information, where you're essentially going around the censorship that they're trying to do. So I highly recommend that every single person gets a VPN so that you can access whatever you want, so that you have the ability to see social media and news and content. So if you actually get a VPN right now, you can access our news account right here on the spot from a place where it's banned. And so in Brazil, what they're doing is now they're penalizing, I don't remember what the penalty is, I don't know if you remember, David, or not, in Brazil.
It's like $8,000 a day or something.
Yeah, if
like
someone
that.
uses a VPN, they're saying to access X, it's an $8,000 fine every single day. All right, like,
you're going to bankrupt the people
madness.
if you want to get access to other information.
So, but look at the hypocrite. What's the word I'm looking for?
Hypocrisy.
Hypocrisy.
Look at the...
I didn't sleep much last night. Hypocrisy here. So think about this. Mark Zuckerberg, U.S. election 2016, they suppressed, I believe, the right-wing media on Donald Trump. They suppressed it.
Yeah.
So now what they're doing in Brazil is they're trying to suppress people who have access to information. And so they're stopping people from even accessing anything X because they say it's disinformation or misinformation. And they're doing it from a virtuous standpoint. So the stance that they took in 2016 apparently is virtuous and good, and that's great. And then Mark Zuckerberg feels guilty about it and goes, "This is what I did." He's just come clean about it and saying, I got to come clean. I regret doing this at all. Now the Brazil government is going, we have to take the same stance here and suppress people from getting this information because it's so-called bad. It's a complete double standard. It's ridiculous. I'm going to turn on my VPN and see if I can access our news.
So as you're talking there, I was doing a couple of quick searches, Google, and then I did another search on DuckDuckGo.
Yeah.
Simply just Brazil X battle summary.
Yeah.
It's amazing the difference in results that come
I
up
know,
as
for
well
sure.
in terms of what's being fed. But basically, just to catch you up, because this is big news, is that there were a certain amount of things that X and Elon Musk had to comply, according to the Brazilian government, by Thursday at midnight. Elon Musk and X. I still like the name Twitter better than X. X is weird to say. But anyways, between X and Musk, they did not comply, shut down on Friday. Also, they suspended his bank accounts, a Starlink bank account. So they shut down access to that in Brazil. So again, is that question of government overreach? So this is what the Yahoo
shut down
News
his
says.
bank.
Elon Musk's Starlink satellite internet service has refused to comply with the ban, which came to force last week after X missed a court-imposed deadline on Thursday evening to name a legal representative in Brazil. It's more than just that. If you're dealing with the devil's not going to reveal himself, I'm the devil. It's going to come in these other nuanced ways that is almost going to slide under the radar. That's the goal, right?
Yep.
If you're an intelligent guy and you're trying to do something like that, you're going to try to find ways to get in through the back door. It's the whole Trojan horse idea, right? With the Greeks and faking like they're leaving them a gift, but really that gift was the one who went and destroyed you from within. This is a similar thing. So you got massive things happening right now, and especially with the upcoming election with Brazil. This is a giant deal to understand what's going on in Brazil, because Twitter, X, and other social medias are probably the largest form of information access that people have.
Totally it is. And it's only increasing. In fact, like the younger people get, they're not seeing TV. They're not, like, podcast becomes one of the largest forms of communication. And so, if it's in their interest to suppress it. But here's I can access it now.
Okay, here's
BCN, although it's not loading.
with the VPN you can access it.
Yep.
So that's our Instagram account from Ottawa.
Yep.
Sweet. That's good times.
It's just not loading at the moment. Give me a second here. Let me just get new.
That was crazy, by the way. Remember how every couple of days you check the Instagram account because Paul was posting all the time, and you see how much you'd be jumping more, and then comments you couldn't even keep up with, and direct messages. That was fun. Enjoyed talking and connecting with all of you guys on that.
The show goes on as well as the only post that's on there right now, because I think we had to try to delete posts to be able to see if we could appeal.
Let's go back to our thing, because we've tried 4 or 5 different times to appeal to get the account unblocked, even tried selling it so we don't own it to someone for $1 and try to redo it. Every time it's getting denied. Because beforehand I think they deemed it news, and right now you and we're just talking about things that matter to us in terms of that's how we're going to go. I want to read this to you. So this is the New York Times about Brazil. As Brazil grappled with a flood of online disinformation around this 2022 presidential election, the nation's Supreme Court made an unusual and fateful decision. It gave one justice sweeping powers to order social networks to take down content he believed threatened democracy. So he gave it to the court, one person, and this guy's name is Flavio Dino. His opinion on what it is.
Yeah.
That's not democracy.
That's
That's why this is important. I want to reiterate what Reagan said, is that democracy, freedom, also you can say democracy, in my opinion, is just one generation away from being lost. Is that when you have these things and you have the needle slowly moving one direction, is before you know it, I've read this book a lot, the tipping point, is that when it slowly goes and momentum builds, all of a sudden floodgates are going to open before you know it. You're nowhere to what you used to recognize. And that justice, Alexandre de Moraes, I said the wrong name, has since carried out an aggressive campaign to clean up the country's internet, forcing social networks to pull down thousands of posts, often giving them a deadline of just hours to comply. So this also goes against similar things with Canada, is that what is considered hate speech, right? Yeah. You and I talked about this with Bill C-63. The name of Bill C-63 is wonderful.
Yeah, Online Harms Act. Yeah.
Yeah, to reduce online harms towards children.
Yeah.
100% yes.
Yeah.
But the bill is much more than just that one headline.
We have a full show about unpacking that too, so let's link it.
Yeah, link it. Go watch that one because you need to know what that's about, because that actually, again, is under the guise. There's a small amount that actually contributes to what the title is, but there are many other things in there that is restrictive of
It's a
speech.
gross overreach.
Redefining hate speech.
Yeah.
Remember that?
Yeah, the criminal code's being defined in hate speech
Redefining.
by the word hate.
Totally. So again, this comes down to who are we okay with being the arbiters of what is right to say and what is wrong to say. And this is why I think United States got it right in the fact of they don't have any hate speech laws. Did you know that?
Yeah.
I'm not saying that we endorse hate speech,
Yeah. Not at all.
but they don't have hate speech laws. And this is where this is where one of our friends, Professor Bruce Party, talks about if you want true freedom of speech,
Yeah.
is that you have to be okay with letting people say what they say without punishment or consequence. That is true freedom of speech.
And that's exactly what Elon is talking about. Have you seen the interview with Don Lemon and him? Discussing,
Yes, I have.
debating back and forth.
It's so good.
It's very punchy, but essentially Elon just keeps saying to him, if you grab it, it's really worth watching. Essentially, they're just going back and forth, and Don Lemon is trying to corner Elon into, so you're for hateful speech in this, and he goes, no. The whole idea is let people say what they want, and yes, you're not going to like it. There's going to be things. We're not saying, yes, we love those things. We're saying if you start censoring, the slope is too slippery and it keeps going. And eventually when a person who's power hungry gets into power, they'll just censor what they want to censor. And they'll continue to go down that road. And you've lost the battle because you've put it into the realm of legal. You've put hate speech in law. And that's where good ideas have to be, like good ideas will rise if we have the freedom to debate and talk. But the moment, I just watched a video right before we started recording of a professor in the UK not in the UK, in Ireland, that just got arrested. He just got arrested because he's not jumping on board with transgenderism. It's the exact same thing as Jordan Peterson was happening, except it's more extreme. He's being arrested. And so he's standing there arguing with the police officers. And the police officers don't even know what they're doing. They don't have a clue why they're arresting him. They're trying to debate with him. And he's just saying, I've done nothing wrong. I've broken no law. There's nothing here to do this. And he's arrested.
Senior clerk, teacher, been arrested for not accepting transgenderism.
Nor should I. And I'm not going to turn my back on my duty to my students.
I'm not going to turn back on my duty.
No, you don't have a duty to do what's wrong.
No, you never
and
have
to
a
bring me
duty to
before
do
the
what's
court.
Even
To bring me before the court.
inside those gates.
To bring me before the
Even though
court.
there's abuse.
This is a
Puberty
disgrace.
blockers.
Children are being
Puberty
taught
blockers.
to tell a young boy.
Surgery.
Yes,
Surgery.
surgery, mutilation.
Yes.
Mutilation.
It's a
And
disgrace.
an absolute
Mutilation.
Absolute disgrace.
Mutilation.
An absolute
You're
disgrace.
telling a boy that he's
Shame
gender
on you. Do you have
neutral.
conscience?
Yeah, that he has to
Shame
take
upon you.
chemicals. That he has to take
Absolute
chemicals.
no
law.
That he has to take chemicals.
be heavy-handed.
No, that he has to take chemicals.
I'm not going to be heavy-handed.
He has broken no laws.
Shame upon you. Shame upon you, Garvey. Shame upon you.
You've no right to do what you're doing.
This is an innocent teacher, a Christian man.
I won't.
Shame upon you, Garda
Mr.
Síochána.
Burke has broken no laws. He has broken no laws.
I have a right to my job. I
His
have a right to work
constitution.
here.
He has a right.
I have a right to be here. And
You're
I'm
arresting
not
him.
to tell students they
won't
need to
promote
tell
puberty
puberty blockers.
You're arresting him
Not
because
to
he
tell
won't
students
endorse
that they need to
transgender
take
ideology. Arrest
Shame
him
upon you,
Shame on you. Shame on you.
I'm trying to find this clip and I can't find it on YouTube. It's showing me all the ones about how Don Lemon
I was thinking,
questioning Musk about drug use, and they're all about that. When I even type in Elon Musk, Don Lemon, free speech clip,
yeah.
and I
think
can't seem to
I think I
find
have
it.
saved. I'll see if I got it here.
But this is important to see because this clip actually shows the difference of perspective on what you can say and what you can't say. Elon Musk would subscribe to the idea of you should be able to say what you say, how you say it, even if it offends and hurts people, but that's true freedom of speech. Where Don Lemon's saying, no, we should be having essentially guidelines and on what people can say or what they can't say.
Been someone who has one of the biggest social media and biggest information platforms in the world, you don't care, you don't think that you have any X.com, or you have any responsibility to the truth or moderating the platform?
You're conflating the truth with the media, and I think the media is not truthful.
You recently called content moderation, though, a digital chastity belt. Do you think that you believe that X and you have some responsibility to moderate hate speech on the platform?
I think we have a responsibility to adhere to the law, and we have a responsibility to be transparent about when things are shown, why they're shown. That's why we open source our algorithm. I think once you start going beyond the law, now you're putting your thumb on the scale. And we don't want to put our thumb on the scale.
It doesn't concern you that hate speech has gone. Research shows that it's gone up on the platform since you took over. That's not concerning to you?
I believe that is false. In fact, the research that I've seen says it went down. So what they will typically do is they will count the number of posts, but not count the number of views. So what matters is, was that post given high visibility, or what did like one person see it? And if you look at the number of views of how many times was hate content viewed on our platform, it is down substantially.
Yeah. Well, that's not was what the study shows. And you said you like transparency. I'm going to show you this.
Were you stuttering? You can tell he's trying to backtrack and figure out how, because you can't argue it. That's why I'm pointing out his stutters, because he doesn't know what he's saying, and it's a hard point to. What Elon just said is truly logical, and
transparency and responsibility to the law.
What in the world is wrong with any of that? And I think the only argument that you can make for this is the way that algorithms have tend to be, is that they continue to show you the things that you look at, and so it puts you down that spiral hole, and thus perpetuating perpetuating ideology that someone will never get out of. They're in a deep dark hole of that, and that's a possibility, sure, but again, when he's saying putting your thumb on the scale, he's saying you are altering what's actually happening, and you are dictating that.
Totally.
So who in the world are you, and what's your ideology, and what do you believe? And so you get to put your spin on everything, and that's what's happening with the Supreme Court. Is they're deciding what democracy should be. One person. It's crazy.
Well, and the idea, that's the biggest issue with it, with trying to control speech and what is information and disinformation. We as human beings have a tendency to be corrupted by power,
for sure,
over and over and over again, and everyone is susceptible to it. So especially if you have someone in a powerful position where they could be threatened to lose their power, well, they're incentivized even more, and they have the ability to potentially control what is out there or deem what is misinformation or disinformation. Well, not saying everyone's going to do this, but we've seen people in power over and over again. That's what Elon Musk is saying. Putting your thumb on the scale, you're tilting it in your favor as to what benefits you. We're seeing this in Venezuela with Maduro and the president, with what he's trying to control his power. You see things in Brazil where there's an election coming up, and the current government wants to control what is misinformation and disinformation. You have a smaller example of that in Canada, where you have, in the form of subsidy or payment to news outlets to help them thrive and survive and employ people and all of these things. Those are all, sure, they sound great things, but you're also incentivizing these news outlets to not criticize or bite the hand that feeds them. There are all these sides of things I have to watch. And Elon Musk is just saying, like, you kind of just have to let it go. And Don Lemon's saying, though, there's got to be control. But let's keep watching.
And Don, you can get a study that will tell you whatever you want.
These are just.
I love that.
So
Don, you'll get a study to tell you whatever you want.
Handful of extremely. You look at those anti-Semitic and racist tropes and tweets, and as of this morning, they're still on X. And from your own content policy, these posts should have been deleted. So why haven't they been deleted? Why are they still there? Did you?
We delete things if they are illegal.
But these have been up there for a while.
Are they illegal?
They're not illegal, but they're hateful, and they can lead to violence. As I just read to you, the shooters, in all of these mass shootings, attributed social media to radicalizing.
So Don, you love censorship, is what you're saying?
No, I don't love censorship.
Then why are you asking?
I believe in moderation, but I don't believe in
censorship. Moderation is a propaganda word for censorship. You can find, you can sign up right now and do 100 things that are hateful. But if nobody reads it, it doesn't matter. So you can think of X as being, it's much like the internet. It's not some tiny publication with like 20 articles a day. It's 500 million.
But everyone has the opportunity to read it, Elon.
And everyone has the opportunity to read the internet. Are you suggesting we should shut down the internet?
No, but
Okay, we're all much dumber for having listened to that.
What?
I want to hear this guy.
entire conversation. But okay, let's try and extrapolate anything important from it.
Who is this guy?
Who are you? We're talking about Elon Musk.
Yeah.
A man who is trying to get us to Mars and change space travel. And what person has changed our world more than Elon Musk right now? And this dude just calls him we're much dumber for listening to him.
Kidding.
Okay, anyways, that wasn't a part of the show originally, but you became a part of it.
I'm a man of faith. I believe in God and all, and so in order for me to arrive at those belief systems, I have questioned the process and faith and creation and where it's all come from, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I've gone through all the questioning and all the things and years of reading and documents and so on and so on and so on. So now, in my family, with my children, if I have the audacity to look at my children in the face and say, hey, I've already decided Christianity is the only way. There's no other way. Don't you dare ask me a question outside of Christianity. If you ask me a question outside, you won't be allowed to sleep in this home. Imagine if I did that. Like that's an extreme version of it. But then if I'm doing that with my faith, I hope you go, what are you hiding? What are you so insecure about in your faith, your beliefs that you're hiding? I can't even question it. If it's true, it should stand the test of questions. There's there's nothing.
And that's why when it comes to faith, you and our Christian beliefs, you and I are totally wide open to saying, ask me anything.
Go nuts. And if I can't answer 100%. It, I'll say, I don't know right now. And I'm going to go to see it. And if all of a sudden it decides, if it's actually like a truth where I can't, it's maybe rocking my belief systems, I need to go down that road and figure it out and go, what am I missing? What's happening here? What piece doesn't add up? I've done that for my entire life with Christianity, and it's always added up. Thus, I believe in it.
Yeah.
But the whole idea is, you're literally what's happening here is they're saying, don't you ask those questions. Don't you say these things. And if you do, we'll shut you down. You should ask those questions. You should go down those roads.
And you shouldn't feel stifled when you want to, or you shouldn't feel like you're going to be attacked when you are.
Yep.
You know what? So a couple of other things that are going on around the world. We talked about Brazil. We talked a little bit about some of the things in Canada, C63.
Yep, C18.
C18. In France right now, right? We've got the Telegram CEO.
Yeah, crazy.
Pavel Durov. Was he arrested?
Yeah.
Or charged?
Arrested.
He's arrested for a number of things, but essentially for not moderating Telegram properly. He's got some charges for
oh, so crazy.
What's not the word? It's not conspiracy. It's acquiescing, being a part of child pornography.
Yeah, essentially
not
saying,
in possession of himself, but because it's happened on the platform of Telegram, right?
Yeah, which essentially saying you're associated with the allowing of it, I guess, or somehow associated with that. But where does that buck stop?
Because you and I were listening to a legal expert about the charges against him for what's happening on his platform is essentially the equivalent of charging internet providers with what goes on through the internet.
All of the internet websites.
And all the individual users within that country that are using it that might be doing illegal things.
And another example would be like cell phone towers. Every phone call that the cell phone tower has, they're responsible for every word I say and every person that's speaking on every phone call around. No, it's outrageous. But they're obviously doing that to try to bring.
And what was Telegram created in response to?
COVID.
And stifling of
conversation.
Conversation.
Yeah.
It was created to be a platform that's unrestricted for people
maybe
to
it predates
talk through.
COVID. Maybe I'm wrong.
It might. Or basically the assault on freedom of speech and access of information.
Yep.
And now you have France prosecuting that way in the UK. I know there's a lot of things happening with the Southport riots and individuals have been arrested for comments that they're making on social media in support of these things. And you've got the Labour left government in the UK as well, pushing for even more restrictions on what people can say.
Well, and remember what all happened with Joe Rogan? Joe Rogan said some things. They tried to cancel him, shut him down. So he jumped over to Spotify because YouTube was suppressing his channel. And so it was essentially extreme censorship on him. And a bunch of his shows were being pulled and disappearing off of YouTube. So he just said, screw it. And he jumped over to Spotify. Spotify sent him an amazing deal.
Right.
He did that for a while. And so all of these people are censoring going, fine, if you're going to continue to censor us, we're going to get our stuff elsewhere. Remember Rumble? Rumble came out of that, and it's a huge platform.
Is Spotify based out of Finland or Sweden?
I don't know.
It's one or the other.
I'm not sure.
It's one of those.
And, but like, so that's what I mean is millions and millions of people are going around it saying, we don't want these censorship laws. But the political world is saying we should, we will, and we're going to continue to do it. It's outrageous. And actually now Joe Rogan's back on YouTube because the money was still there and the viewership followed Joe, and YouTube lost millions and millions and millions of ad dollars from Joe. So they bring him back. It's all about the money.
For those guys who don't have an ideological horse in the race, is that the money they'll just go wherever. Those who've got like weak backbones, right? What's the saying? A fish backbone? I don't know. You know where people are super soft? Good. It's not. It sounds horrible. There's a way better way to say it. Why am I blanking on that? Anyways, the point is when they don't care, they don't have a moral ground that they really care for. Yeah. They're just going to follow the money.
Did you ever see the? You know who I love, who is all for free speech is Dana White. Dana White.
Well, it's interesting the movement of these guys.
I know.
That are now choosing who have been relatively silent for years and years because they haven't felt, but now they're hitting their tipping point, their breaking point of, I just don't care anymore. This is and they're seeing the writing on the wall as to the direction that this is starting to go, right?
Yep. Absolutely. Here, I'm going to post this clip here onto the TV. I got it. Just loading.
You know, also one thing that bugs me though, as you're loading this, is you got guys that you say like Dana White, you say Joe Rogan, you say a bunch of other names, advocates of freedom of speech.
Sorry.
You have advocates of freedom of speech, and there are too many people that will hear a name of a person.
Yeah.
And they'll completely just write them off and not even want to listen to what they have to say because they've already got presuppositions about that person, right? Like Dana White is typically an outspoken businessman, strong, gruff, that kind of guy. And people just say, he's not my type. I just don't care what he has to say. But he's got some amazing things and things he's been doing. I want to challenge you. Don't necessarily judge a book by its cover, because there's a lot of people who you might write off that actually are doing a lot of good that's going to help you and your future family.
Totally. And for those who are watching, and maybe if you're on the, I want to tag people who you think we should listen to, or maybe that oppose our ideas or what we're talking about. We want to listen to it. That's the whole point of all of this, is to talk. It's to wrestle with ideas and concepts. Also follow us, share the content. We want this discussion to constantly, to get further out. That's the whole idea, is for fellow citizens to know why they believe what they believe, what we're doing here the reason that we did all this was in the face of censorship. We got to keep talking. We got to get people to be aware of everything going on in Canada and everything that was happening with the Freedom Convoy at the time, and what's happening in our nation and around the world, and how these things affect us as citizens and our rights, and what we're all here to do, and the roles politicians play in our world, and how we should vote for them, and how we should think critically, and so on and so on and so on. So follow us, like, comment. Also let us know if there's maybe somebody going, hey, you should listen to this guy. He'll counteract your view on this. Love to see it. Absolutely love to see it. Here's the Dana clip. I'll show it to you quick. He swears a lot, so we'll bleep it, but again, swear.
Dana, I just want to go back. You were talking about, you obviously give a long leash to your fighters about, what they can say when they are up there with a UFC microphone, and you are getting into territory of homophobia, transphobia. Is there...
I don't give anybody a leash.
Well, I'm saying you...
A leash? Free speech. And control what people say. Going to tell people what to believe. Going to tell people... I don't can tell any other human being what to say, what to think, and there's no leashes on any of them. What is your question?
I was asking that question. I'll move on, though.
Yeah, probably a good idea. That's ridiculous to say I give somebody a leash. Free speech, brother. People can say whatever they want, and they can believe whatever they want. And I don't think there's any... We had two gay women who fought in the co-main event. They sat on the stage with Sean Strickland. They could give a shit what Sean Strickland thinks, or what he says, or what his beliefs are, or what his opinions are. You know what I mean? Go ahead. What do you got?
Yeah.
But that's a leash? Do you even see how he goes, you give him a long leash, that's just a part of his dialogue. He's like, a leash? What are you talking about? A leash? Let people talk. Let the good ideas. And if they say something stupid, they're going to get hate for it.
So
people are going to come after them going, that was stupid. What are you doing?
Why would some people have a problem with that? Why would a lot of people have a problem with Dana White's response?
I have a hard time figuring out why.
Let's try putting ourselves in those shoes.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to hurt people, offend people maybe. Don Lemon touched on they believe it will lead to violence. What else?
I would assume that's it. I actually and if
they
you're
just
watching,
don't like it. It's
love to hear people's
offensive.
comments on this.
It rubs them wrong, makes them uncomfortable. Like I actually think it's other reasons like that. That it's just.
It must be. I don't know.
They don't want to deal with the
fully don't
controversy or the confrontation that comes up with having to address if you disagree with somebody. Maybe
like as a father, I'm trying to raise my children to be critical thinkers.
Yeah.
Not tell them what to think. To be critical thinkers, so that as the information of their life continues to input in their brain, they can weed through it and go, I don't know. That seems fishy. Not sure about that. But I'm not trying to block and shut doorways of information on them. Like I'm trying to get them to receive because they're going to hear crap. They're going to hear someone's going to tell them they're dumb and stupid, and they need to realize, okay, no, I'm not. Like that's someone's opinion, someone's thoughts.
Yeah.
But I can't sit there and block all the information coming into their ears and eyes for the rest of their life. I'm going to teach them how to handle bad information, good information, lies, or truth. They got to figure out what's what. So that's why that's why I struggle to even put words to it because I'm going, you have to hear it all. It has to come. And you have to be able to counteract it. You have to be able to stick up for the weak, denounce violence. If somebody's calling for violence, that's where Elon draws the line because it's illegal. You can't call for violence. That's illegal. We don't want violence, but we also that's why they've been trying to expand. I find that the left, especially in the States, has been trying to expand the definition of violence to words. And that's why in a lot of the debates I've seen on YouTube is that they literally call hate speech violence. And that's
inciting
wild.
violence.
Yeah, it's wild.
That's why it's really tough in Canada with how they tried in Bill C-63, how they're trying to define hate speech. Is that if you read how they're trying to define it, it's essentially a bunch of synonyms of hate.
Yeah.
That's very ambiguous.
Very dangerous.
It's vague, and it leaves it up to the eye of the beholder.
Yeah.
Right? Beauty's in the eye of the beholder. Well, according to Bill C-63, hate is in the eye of the beholder. Yep. In the one who's receiving it, well, that's hateful because it fits this broad definition. And you know what? I just don't like it, so I'm going to... It is a really, really tough thing to talk about. And under this, people could consider disagreement as hate.
Well, especially in the C-63, as you and I unpacked it, you can anonymously report people because you were offended and so on and so on. And it's a wild slippery slope there. But the thing that I also want, for anyone who disagrees with our take on this, the thing that I want to kind of show you though is that this is for everybody's safety. The far left leaning and the far right leaning, the middle of the road, everybody. So if right now, let's say the left is in power and they get these laws and all the left people are going championing hate speech censorship, yay, so good. Take out the left and put in the right. Those left people who thought this was a good idea,
exactly,
that right group now has that same power. So that's what I'm saying is you need to set up the laws in such a careful way that whatever party gets in, that they're answering to a higher moral value system that's going to govern them properly. That's why I love the way that the U.S. has no hate speech laws, is because they have their constitution that's going to protect free speech, and that way the good ideas rise to the top.
Yep.
Like it's brilliant because it's now it's safe from left parties or right parties.
What you said was such a good point, that you have to play the movie out, play the long-term effect of what you're trying to accomplish within laws. Why? Because laws stick around way longer than people in power, than governments in power. And what is that law going to do in a different group of people's hands? Right? What grounds does that give them to act? And just because you're in favor of something now, the tables could flip on you in 5 or 6 years with the thing you're allowing. Because if you're willing to allow that to happen to someone who believes different than you, well, guess what? Eventually it's going to flip and be against you. And that's why for all of us as citizens in a country is that the best path forward for a country is being able to allow these ideas to rub together, allowing freedom of speech. Even if you hate what the people are saying, is that they should be allowed to say what they're saying. I truly believe that. Like I am in the anti-censorship complete.
I'm
and if I disagree with you, I'm going to give you a piece of my mind and let you know why I think it's stupid.
Can the editor censor David right now? I don't like what he has to say. Just go ahead and block it. There you go. But that's you and I were joking in the before, being like, we should have a speech or a talk where we just censor one of us, and the viewer doesn't get to hear what one person gets to say. Can you imagine that? Like,
bleep out the whole thing.
It's an extreme version of it, but it's the same thing. Like it's like if I just didn't agree with you, censor. Like one of my things that I always try to do on YouTube is I hate how it always suggests the same content. It drives me bonkers. I'm trying to find new music or new speakers or teachers or whatever I can look for, and it's always the same people. And so I often will sign out of my account to just get new content. It doesn't know who's viewing anymore, so you get new content, and that's what I love. So all of a sudden I'll see new people, new music, new this,
of course.
And I love that. And so part of our financial system also has perpetuated this and made it worse. Our social media algorithms and design and advertising dollars, they're trying to ramp up dollars so that David always sees this sports thing, and if we know you like this sports thing, we're going to feed you more, and then we know when I sell David's information to the NHL, this guy's a big NHL viewer, so we know it. So it's the algorithms don't help at all, and so we've maybe got to talk about that. We got to talk about the infrastructure of what's it called when people continually go down the same road and they confirmation bias.
Yes,
confirmation bias, where it confirms it. You're looking for more of it. You find more of it. You agree with it. You go, see, I told you so. I knew it, and you're not objectively looking at things, and that's the dangerous road here on both sides. Not only on when someone takes an idea and they like it and they just go for it, but also on the censorship side. If I actually don't have access to the other side, that's even more dangerous.
Totally.
It's crazy.
Well, the definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over and over again and expecting a different result.
Yeah.
And some of the things that we are doing over and over again as a Western culture has been repeated before in history. And if we're expecting a different result, well, according to that definition, we're acting insane.
Totally.
And that's why it's so important to maintain these fundamental freedoms and human rights that we have. Is one of them is freedom of speech, and there is an assault, there's an attack that is trying to stifle that through a lot of different countries.
Yep.
And it's really important to fight and to hang on to that.
Totally. And something I think a lot of Canadians don't know is we don't have freedom of speech in Canada. We don't. There's a lot of things that a Canadian can't say and could be imprisoned for saying and talking about. And I don't think a lot of Canadians know that. I think they think we have free speech, but we don't.
You can't say whatever you want to say in Canada.
No, you absolutely can't. It's in our laws. You can be arrested. You can have all sorts of things happen.
And half of you might think that's great, and half of you might think that's absolutely insane.
Yeah.
But my point is that's going to keep on tightening as opposed to loosening up.
Yep.
Play over time.
For sure.
And let's see what happens, especially with the things that are trying to come through in our government, the new laws that are trying to be. That's why it's so important to be on top of what is our government proposing for laws and legislation. You have to be on top of that.
Yeah, for sure.
Anything else?
No, I think that covers it really well. I'd love to hear people's thoughts. I really want to hear people's thoughts and comments. So comment below, follow us, like us. That's one of my favorite things is to hear people's disagreements and agreements and. And
here's a question.
If you don't like us, you have the freedom to tell us. Or no, we're going to censor you.
Okay, here's a question for you. In Canada, here's a question for you. In Canada, should people be able to say whatever they want to say? Should we get rid of hate speech laws and just be like the United States in terms of you can say what you want to say where they don't have any hate speech? Or should we have laws that allow and disallow what people should say? And then who are the arbiters of that? And how do we manage that? I want to hear what you have to say on that. We want to hear what you have to say on that. So let us know.